This is the issue, and I'm the Ghetto Man. Today's issue, red flag laws. How are we, the people, going to deal with these red flag laws? Well, the answer is reasonably simple. But you first must understand how to exercise your constitutionally protected rights, especially the Bill of Rights, those things that pertain to you as your rights under the Bill of Rights. Well, the red flag laws they're a evolution of other constitutional laws that finally bring us to a point where the government now thinks that all it has to do is label something as a civil action, and somehow your rights under the Bill of Rights are completely ignored because it's a civil action. The civil law cannot supersede your constitutionally protected rights under the Bill of Rights. We've seen the Department of Family Services, how they come and take children without due process law. They just steal them from the school, and then you have to go to court and prove that whatever it is they're accusing you of, that you didn't do. In other words, you're guilty till proven innocent. But we'll call it civil. Therefore, we can avoid the Bill of Rights in its entirety. Well, this is nonsense. Now, they've done the same thing with these civil forfeiture laws, where they come in and they say, well, we're going to go ahead and seize the money, seize the house, because we think that it was used in some sort of criminal enterprise or some sort of criminal action. So what do? We go ahead and we seize the house, we seize the money, we seize something, and we charge that something with a crime, which is ridiculous because all property, all of our property rights, everything that we own is an extension of we the people. It's an extension of our person. It's an extension of who we are. And you can't take a person's life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the law. Okay, but what they do is they come to your car, they pull you over, and they say, do you have any money or any in your car, any cash? And what do? You say, oh, well, I have $1,000 here. And when they go and they take it, and they say, we're seizing this because we think it was involved in a crime, and you're going to have to prove otherwise. They may even take your car, and then you have to go and prove it otherwise. Well, anyway, the civil forfeiture laws were the precursor to what's happening with these red flag laws. And these red flag laws, once again, they're saying that this is a civil proceeding, so therefore your constitutional rights do not apply. Well, this is totally ridiculous. When it comes to your rights, the one thing that you must understand, and this is extremely important, it's paramount, is that you, only you, can exercise a constitutional right. Only you can make the demands. It can't be done by an attorney or a solicitor or any other person. It has to be you. Now, the courts have basically said that in order for, let's give you an example, for the right of self-incrimination, the right to remain silent, that you have to exercise that right. And if you don't exercise the right, any time that you do not exercise the right, then it is presumed that that right has been waived because you didn't say anything, you didn't demand it. And that's what the problem is here today. We have people who do not understand how to exercise their rights. Now, I'm going to pull up a court case here. And this court case is a federal supplement case, so it's not a Supreme Court case, but it comes out of the federal district courts. And it's called United States versus Johnson, and you can find it in 76 Federal Supplement on page 538. And what the court said here is that now we're talking about self-incrimination, but this applies to all of your rights, starting from the First Amendment right on down to the 10th Amendment, the Bill of Rights. The privilege against self-incrimination is neither accorded to the passive resistance, nor to the person who is ignorant of his rights, nor to one indifferent thereto. It is a fighting clause. Now, it's important to remember these words. It is a fighting clause. When you demand your rights, it's a fighting clause. You have a right to these things, and government must obey your rights. It is a fighting clause. Its benefits can be retained only by sustained combat. I mean, these are pretty powerful words. You want your rights? Then you personally better be ready to fight for them. If you're not, I don't even know why you're in the United States. Go down to Venezuela or something. You have to have a backbone if you're going to be a free person. The court goes on to say, it says it cannot be claimed by an attorney or a solicitor. It is valid only when insisted upon by a belligerent, and this is the court words, a belligerent claimant in person. So if you want your rights to be honored, then you better be ready to fight for them. If you're not ready to fight, then you might as well just bend over and kiss your ass goodbye. Because being in a free country, being a sovereign citizen, one who has total control and responsibility over his or her life, then you better be responsible. You better know the law, you better know your rights, and you better know how to exercise them. Whether you're in a car, whether you're with your children, whether you're in your house, when an officer of the law or any person of government comes to your door, there are certain procedures that these people have to follow. And they must follow the Bill of Rights. And they're all trained to this. They all understand this. So don't think for 1 minute that when they come to your door that this person is ignorant of the law. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what the law is. And if they're carrying out an unlawful order, then they can be held liable individually. Now, people say, well, the police officers have a qualified immunity. Well, qualified immunity means that if the officer comes up and reasonably believes that what he's doing is legal, reasonably believes it's legal, then of course he's got this immunity. But when they come to your door without a Fourth Amendment warrant, without probable cause, and they demand that they're going to, for you to open up your door and let them come in and seize your weapons, assuming that you have any in there, they must follow the mandates of the Bill of Rights. They must have a warrant. And or probable cause. Probable cause, they must give an example of probable cause. They come up to the door, they see you in the house, and they see you beating up somebody in the house and then shoot them in the head with a gun. Then they can go ahead. That's called an exigent circumstance. They can go ahead and bust in and go ahead and arrest you for a crime because they have seen it. It's happening before them. That's what an exigent circumstance is. Then there are other things, the plain view rule, where you let them into your house, and they come into the house and they see that there's some criminal activity going on. I don't know, maybe you got a joint laying in an ashtray and they smell it and they see it. And then once they see it, they can go ahead and arrest you and charge you for that crime because it was in plain view. But they wouldn't have seen it if you hadn't opened the damn door. And this is the problem with the American people today. When government comes to your door, you must demand that they have a Fourth Amendment warrant or probable cause. You must demand to have counsel present. And you have a right to remain silent. At the moment that the government is focusing upon you for some reason, and you feel that you're being investigated, you have a right to drop what they call the exclusionary rule. And that is a right to remain silent, the right to have counsel present. You don't have to let them in. The moment you do, you have waived that right. Now, these red flag laws are not even warrants. They're just orders, civil orders by a judge based upon some affidavit signed by someone who claims that you are a threat to the community and that you have guns. That's ridiculous. And then they're going to come to your house and they're going to come over there and seize your property without due process. Well, when they come to the door, like I said, you got to make sure, one, personally, I wouldn't even answer the damn door. I see them standing out there. If they have some legal right to do it, let them kick the door in, as far as I'm concerned. I've dealt with this government for all my adult life, and I'm telling you, I have never seen such ignorant communist bastards that come to your door. I mean, even when you get pulled over, all right? Do you have a right to remain silent? They're starting to inquire. If you tell them your name, what if you got a warrant for your arrest? Do you have to tell them your name so they can go search it and witness against yourself? Say, oh, you got a warrant, we're going to arrest you? Or do you have a right to remain silent? Do you have a right to have counsel present? See, when I deal with the police, that's all I ever say is, the first question I always ask an officer, if I say anything at all, is, what are you going to do to me if I don't answer your questions? That usually throws them into a loop and say, I'm not answering your questions unless you have a Fourth Amendment warrant or probable cause. And I will not say anything until I have counsel present. And you do not, under any circumstances, have consent to search me or my vehicle, or in the case of red flag laws, my house. Now, it's important that in today's climate that you record everything. Because one thing I've learned about the police is I've dealt with them. Now, I'm not saying that all officers are this way. I'm only telling you what I've dealt with. And I'm telling you, a police officer, every time I've dealt with them, they would not tell the truth in the reports or on the stand, even if the truth fits. They make up a story that didn't even happen. That was one of the things when I was teaching students how to deal with government, that when they said, well, the cop came over and he did this and he did that and he violated my rights here and that, and this is what happened, I would laugh. I'd say, until you get a copy of that police report, don't you think for 1 minute that the officer is going to agree with you on what happened. And, of course, they go get the police report, and what happens? They look at it and they go, none of this happened. That's right. None of this happened. But you see, if you demand your rights, every stage, every moment that you're dealing with government, the three things that I tell people all the time, and it's easy to remember, when you're dealing with government, don't say anything, keep your mouth closed, and shut up. Even though these red flag laws are being passed, your right to demand a warrant, your right to demand probable cause, your right to have counsel present, your right to remain silent does not cease to exist. Unless you are not the belligerent claimant in person and you just go along with what they're saying. Can I search the house? Oh, yeah, go ahead. And like I said, once you let them into your house, what's to stop them from planting an illegal gun in the house, or planting drugs in the house, or just completely fabricating some ridiculous story to charge you with some other crime? The moment you open your doors to a red flag intrusion, you've opened your doors for all kinds of problems. I would never, ever, under any circumstances, allow an officer to enter my home without a Fourth Amendment warrant. And I'm not going to go over the Fourth Amendment right now. I've got a complete series of videos on the Bill of Rights, and we cover all this stuff. You need to know that. These red flag laws, they violate the entire Bill of Rights. They violate your right to freedom of speech, because you're afraid to go ahead and talk about guns or anything. If you say anything that may indicate that you might not be sane or playing with a full deck, they're going to go ahead and they're going to say, see, I told you he was crazy. And if you open the door and you have a gun in your hand, today a person opening the door with a policeman's gun in his hands, that's just asking for it. Don't open the door unless they have a valid warrant. You have a right to counsel present. You have a right to have counsel present. Ask counsel, should I answer these questions? If you don't exercise that right, then you don't have it. It's that simple. We're dealing with your right to a trial by jury, your right to access of courts, the right to unreasonable punishment, excessive punishment. I mean, we're dealing with the first, the second, the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and the ninth and 10th, because the Ninth Amendment deals with your rights, and the 10th Amendment deals with what power was delegated to the government. And the power to, come to your door without a warrant and just an order of a court to seize property violates the Bill of Rights. Of course, if you don't know that, you're going to open the door. And see, this is the problem with people today. They don't know how to remain silent. They don't know how to exercise their rights. When a police officer asks you your name, what are you going to do to me if I don't answer that question? At this moment, I feel like I'm being targeted for something. I'm going to drop the exclusionary rule, and I'm not going to say anything until I have counsel present. Now, I've been arrested for obstructing and delaying an officer for demanding my rights. This was years ago. And I sued those officers because no reasonable officer knows that they know they haven't the right to force you to speak. And then if you don't speak, they turn around and arrest you for obstructing and delaying because you exercise a constitutionally protected right, an inalienable right. All the time. 90% of all convictions are made through admissions and confessions. You have to learn how to shut up. If you don't stand fast and exercise your rights, as I said earlier, they're presumed wavered. Now, you want to waive your rights? That's your business. But when the government comes to my door, especially my house, they better have all their T's crossed and all their I's dotted, because I will not allow them to enter my home without a warrant. Now, grant you, the police today, they're liable to kick your door in. Like I said, this is why you need to record everything that's going on. Make sure that you have a record of what's going on. When they kick your door in, don't try to be Rambo and take them on at the door. That's nuts. You're not going to win. I mean, the one thing I learned about winning a battle was not to take and, when the power of government is right in your face, try to take them on. That's not how it works. That's how, when we were in Vietnam, the Viet Cong, what they did is they never hit us head on. It was always they would do something to guerrilla warfare. They'd hide behind trees. They'd set up booby traps. They'd do all kinds of things in order to harass us. But taking, the United States military head on never was a good ending for a group of people that didn't have the power to resist that. But just going along and working all day long and serving the military and patting them on the back and being their friends during the day and then slitting their throats at night worked well for them. So don't take on government straight on. Document everything. Because the moment they bust into that house with just a court order saying that they're coming to seize your property when you have had no hearing, you've had no due process of law, is a constitutional violation. Use it to your advantage. Do not sit there and try to resist these people. Because the moment you resist, like I said, this is the same thing they did in Russia under the Soviet Union. This is how they rounded up dissidents. They would claim that they were mentally ill, and then they just go and grab them and whatever else they wanted to grab. They throw the person into some sort of insane asylum where they drug him until he was insane. And then say, see, this is why we had to come after him, because he's nuts. So when you come to the door with a gun in your hand, see, the person who made the accusation is right. This person is nuts. It doesn't ever occur to them, ever, that what you're doing is a thing you have a right to do, and that's to protect your life, liberty, and property against a criminal government, or any criminal for that matter. And these criminals come to your door with guns in violation of your rights to due process of law. So if you're going to do anything, you're going to have to do this yourself. Only a sovereign citizen can exercise their rights. Slaves can't exercise rights because they have none. They're just do as they're told. And when a public servant comes to the door and says, "We're here to seize your guns," do you have a Fourth Amendment warrant? "We don't need one." Yes, you do. You're not entering this house unless you have a Fourth Amendment warrant, specifically describing the persons and things that are going to be seized, and it has to be done pursuant to an allegation of criminal activity. And I said before, when they open that door and they can look around that house, anything that they see that they determine is criminal activity, they can seize that property, because once they see it, you don't have any right. You let them in. They're going to seize that property, and then they're going to arrest you. And now what started out to be a civil proceeding turns into a criminal arrest. And then how are you going to argue that in court? You know, well, the police came to my door. I opened my door up to see what was going on. They said they were here for my guns. I let them in, and they looked around and they saw some other criminal activity, or like I said before, maybe the police officer's going to throw something on the ground. Oh, what do we have here? Looks like cocaine. Now you're under arrest for cocaine. They're taking your guns without due process of law, and now because you opened your door to them and let them come in, you waived your rights. You now have another problem. You're charged with a crime. Never let government into your house. This is the reason the Fourth Amendment was there, so that they can't come in the house, plant drugs, plant any type of evidence that they can use against you. And remember, anything you say or do can and will be used against you. There's a Supreme Court case called Miranda versus Arizona. I keep threatening to do a video on this because it lays out exactly how the police work, how government works, and what your rights are, and how important it is for you to know those rights, and how important it is for you to exercise those rights when you're dealing with government. Now, we watched the Communist Party, the Democratic Party. We've watched them. They are now saying openly that they're coming to take your guns. Now, these are people who are running for office, and they cannot take the oath of office because they've already told you that they're not going to honor it. We're coming for your guns. They can't take that oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign, domestic. When they take that oath, that means they're going to honor the Bill of Rights. They agree that they're going to honor them before they come in. And they do this without the purpose of evading that oath. But we have politicians, both in the Democrat and Republican Party. But right now the Democratic Party is just open and notoriously, they're the Communist Party. Now I have a series of videos on how the United States of America has established communism in this country. All 10 planks have been established. The only two things that haven't been done is the abolition of our rights to free speech and our abolition to own firearms to defend ourselves from a criminal government or any other danger that you may be subject to is in your life. But we have politicians that are open and notoriously telling you that they are going to come for the Bill of Rights. They're not going to be happy with just taking away the guns. They want to take away all due process, and that's what these red flag laws are all about. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give anybody legal advice, and this isn't legal advice. What I'm doing is I'm exercising my First Amendment right of freedom of speech and association. I'm telling you what I would do. I'm telling you what I've learned from the law, but then it's up to you to go out and do your own research and study, and then understand what it is you have to do, and then have the intestinal fortitude to exercise your rights. Now, are you going to get arrested? Probably. I've been arrested several times, and I've had to go to court and deal with this stuff. But I made sure that I had a good, solid record of what happened. And then I was able to go into court and prove to the judge that what happened violated my rights, and because of my rights were violated, anything that was discovered has to get thrown out. Now, these red flag laws, they're coming for the guns. So don't keep your eggs all in one basket. I mean, you can keep what you need to defend yourself at home, but if you've got things that you need to defend yourself from a tyrant government, don't leave them in the house. That would be ridiculously stupid. And make sure that you understand your rights. Okay, here's a scenario that I'm going to go through real quick. Okay, this happens all the time. I don't have a driver's license, and I haven't had a driver's license for over 30 years. Now, the driver's license is considered a privilege, but if you do your study, you'll find out that the only people who need driver's licenses are those people who are operating on the roads for profit and gain. Taxi cabs, the truckers, anybody that's using the roads for profit and gain. They're actually using those roads for profit and gain. They need to be licensed because they're driving on our roads and they're messing them up and they get in the way. And there's all kinds of things. They can spill over and have toxic waste, all kinds of things. So they need to be licensed. I live in Montana. I don't know what it's like in your state, but in Montana, I cannot get a driver's license even if I want one. And I've told them that. I will get a driver's license. But in order to do it in Montana, I have to completely surrender all of my religious beliefs. I cannot serve Yahweh. I have to serve, if I serve Yahweh, I also have to serve the state. Well, I'm not going to get into the full argument right now. I'll do a video on that later. But all I can tell you is this, is that I am not going to waive my rights to freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof and to get a driver's license. I don't have to surrender one right in order to get this privilege. I have a right to take my property, my car, and I have a right to drive it on my roads and go from point A to point B without government interfering with me whatsoever. I'll cover that later on, and we will cover the case of Miranda versus Arizona. It's a long case. It's about 100 pages long. It's one of the longest cases that come out of the United States Supreme Court, but it's one of the most important cases that any citizen should ever read and study because it tells you what to do. The courts lay it out and say, this is what you do. Like I said, for me, if the police come to the door, in this climate, this political climate with all these unconstitutional laws, I'm not even going to answer the door. I'm going to make them bust it in. And then I'm going to demand my rights. But I have a right to a Fourth Amendment warrant, and you better have one. I have a right to probable cause. So if you're going to come into this house, bust my door down, there better be some exigent circumstances that require you to come busting my door down. I'm going to demand counsel throughout every step of the interrogation. I will not open my mouth. I will not open my mouth unless I have counsel present. And never, ever will I ever let somebody in without a Fourth Amendment warrant. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's just simple. Mr. So-and-so, we have a court order to come in here and you are to surrender your guns. Do you have a Fourth Amendment warrant? We don't need a Fourth Amendment warrant. If you don't have a Fourth Amendment warrant, you're not entering my house. You got it? And boom, bust in the door. Bust in the door. Don't say anything. Keep your mouth closed and shut up. I'm not going to answer any of your questions until I have counsel present. And you do not have consent to search my home. You must demand at least those three things. And make sure it's recorded because I'm telling you, I was being fingerprinted one time in Long Beach, California. And I wanted to show I'm going to sue these jailers and the officers under Title 42, Section 1983 of the United States Code to deprive me of my life, liberty, and property under color of law. Okay, and so they arrested me and they take me into jail, and they want to go ahead and they want to fingerprint me. Well, I have to show that I am the belligerent claimant person. I am not going along with this. I have a right to be brought before a judge with unnecessary delay. There's nothing in the law that says that I have to go through this process of being fingerprinted and my pictures taken and all this stuff before I see a judge. The law says, with unnecessary delay, take me to a judge. State your case, let the judge decide as if there's probable cause to hold me. So when they start to do my fingerprints, I go one finger at a time, they roll them out. When I get to the little pinky, the last one, I take a deep breath and I smear the card. Of course, they choke you. And I mean, they choke you. And then you got to take that breath. If you don't take that breath, you're liable to go up. But take that breath, they'll choke you a little bit. And they'll start to release you. They'll put the card out and they say, you better do this or we'll choke you again. So you start the process again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you get the pinky, smear the card. Now, why am I doing this? Because I'm going to subpoena those cards to show you them that I was being forced to have my fingerprints taken. They have no right to take my fingerprints. The only thing they have a duty to do is bring me before a judge. When they go to take my picture, I would not stand in front of their camera. I made sure they had 3 or 4 of them holding me down in front of that camera. Hey, take his picture. And I'm thinking, that's the picture I want because it shows that they're forcing me to take this picture. And I said that. This is the picture I want. Now I have evidence. I shouldn't have said anything. They let me loose. Oh. Then they threw me in solitary confinement for 3 days. 3 days. Now, of course, when they threw me in there, I knew that they always tell you how to get out. They say, when you cooperate with us, you can get them out of here. And until you cooperate, you're not coming out of here. So I say, well, I can come out anytime I want. They just told me all I have to do is cooperate. So now it's not a matter of how long I'm going to be in there. It's a matter of how long are you going to keep me in here without getting me before a judge. I'm now serving time in jail, in solitary confinement, and all I want is to be brought before a judge. They came into the room and they took me into another little room and they had a little table with 2 chairs. One was red and one was green. And of course, being a Vietnam vet, when they said, we want you to sit in the red chair, I told them, I prefer green, and I grabbed the green chair. I made them forcefully put me in the red chair. And then when they asked me your name, my name, I told them it's none of your business what my name is. What's your Social Security number? What are you going to do? Are you going to send me some sort of benefit? When's your birthday? What are you going to do? Bake me a birthday cake? I want you to stop this right now. I want counsel present, and I want to be brought before a judge. Shut up! You have no rights until we tell you have rights. I mean, they'll lie to you. This is all out of the case of Miranda versus Arizona. There's 4 cases in there. And this is what the police do. They get you off by yourself and they intimidate you. They threaten you. I was threatened to be beat up. I've beat up guys bigger than you and blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't care. Bring me before a judge. Give me my counsel. And why am I here? What are you charging me with? I've even had one time when they took me before a commissioner. This was in Long Beach, California. And the commissioner's not a judge. The only way he can even review a case is if I give him consent. I stipulate to him acting as a judge. And the first thing I say to the commissioner is this: you're not a judge. I do not stipulate you to hear this case. And he'll say, your motion is denied. Commissioner, you can't deny my motion. I didn't give you consent to be able to hear this case. You do not have the authority to hear it. I'm going to be brought before a lawful judge. This is how a belligerent claimant acts. Your motion is denied. I do not recognize your motion. So he sets a trial date, and he releases me on my own recognizance. Okay? What do? I go home, the court date comes along. I'm not going. I'm not bound to this commissioner's ruling because I never gave him consent to act as a judge. He's a commissioner, not a lawful judge. I made them come all the way out to the house and re-arrest me again, and we went through the same process again. They went through there, threw me in solitary confinement, going on and on. Now remember, each time they do this, they have violated my rights. And I have a case in the federal district court, and you can actually do this in the state court too. Do them in both if you want. But I have a federal case under Title 42, Section 1983 of the United States Code. I have a right, excuse me, I have a right to sue these people. Now, the law says this and this and this. I'm supposed to be brought before a judge, not a commissioner, with unnecessary delay. They can't hold me in solitary confinement. They can't take my fingerprints, and they can't make me stand in front of a picture. All of these things are a violation of my rights, and I'm going after each one. I'm going to go after the jailers that were involved in it. I'm going to go after the police that were involved in it. I'm going to go after everybody, including the commissioner, if I have to. That's how a sovereign citizen acts. Now, these red flag laws are going to create nothing but problems. And the reason it's going to create problems is because we, the people, the individuals, are not going to stand up for their constitutional rights. They're not going to demand a Fourth Amendment warrant. They're not going to demand counsel. They're not going to remain silent. They're going to go ahead and open a door and let these people in. And then once they do that, anything they find in there that can be used against you in a criminal proceeding, they're going to use it. And whose fault is it? It would be my fault if I let them in. And the moment I do, I don't have a civil rights case, because what I did is I waived them. Now I'm going to go back to that case where the court says now this goes for all of your rights, everything. Your right to counsel, your right to trial, everything, all due process. And the court said in this case, the privilege against self-incrimination is neither accorded to the passive resistant, nor to the person who is ignorant of his rights, nor to one indifferent thereto. So if you don't demand it, you don't know about it, you're ignorant. It doesn't matter. Ignorance of the law, especially your constitutional rights, is no excuse. Court goes on to say, it's a fighting clause. God dang, it's a fighting clause. Are you willing to fight for your rights? Because if you're not, like I said, bend over and kiss your ass goodbye. Its benefits, the court goes on to say, its benefits can be retained only by sustained combat. Get it? Court goes on to say it cannot be claimed by an attorney. Your attorney can't claim your rights, or a solicitor. It is valid only when insisted upon by a belligerent claimant in person. I've had police say to me, we're getting awfully belligerent. You're damn right I'm being belligerent. You're violating my rights, you moron. Do your job. But the police don't know their job. They've been taught how to violate your rights. And this is why the case of Miranda versus Arizona is so important, because the court goes through and shows you what they do, all the little tricks that they play. And then once you know these tricks and you start to use them on you, you know how to counteract them. That's all I wanted to say. You know, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I haven't done a video because, you know, I do these for free. I don't charge anybody, and I'm not looking for money. I don't want any money. What I want to do is to share with you the things that I have discovered as I've gone through my life. And I have learned to stand my ground. If you can't stand your ground, then you're going to be a victim. We're all products of the Communist Manifesto, every one of us, especially the 10th plank, free education in public schools. That's where you learn how to be. You learn about democracy. You learn about all this crazy crap that's going on, because that's how communism works. The state must control the education system, and then it brings in and indoctrinates the people the way they want, so that when you get out of school and get out of college, you're a good little slave Toby. You do exactly what the plantation America says to do. You'll never question anything. Anytime anybody asks you a question, if they remotely look like they have some authority, what do? Oh, here's my ID. Here we go. Blah, blah. I remember one time a fishing game. This was years ago. We'd come back from diving we were down in San Pedro, California. We were diving breakwater, and we came back to the docks, and there were fishing game there, and the fishing game, wanted to look through our stuff to see what we had been doing. And everybody else, they asked them for their driver's license and their ID, and they handed them everything till they came to me, and I had my container. Now, at the time we were diving, we were just out there sport diving. I don't think anybody really had anything at the time, but it doesn't matter. I didn't have anything. And this moron comes walking up to me, this fishing game guy, and he taps my trash can. I had a big trash can. I kept all my gear in it. Much easier to work out of when you're on a dive boat. And he says, "What's in the container?" And I told him, I said, "It's none of your business." He says, "Well, how do I know there isn't any fish in there?" I says, "You don't. And you do not have my permission to look to see if it's there. I am not going to allow you to look at it." "Well, we have a right to look at any container that may contain fish." No. What you have a duty to do is, first of all, if you haven't seen any fish, then you have no probable cause. Just because I'm on a boat doesn't mean that I have fish or been fishing, or even if I'm diving, whether I was diving for game. I could be just pleasure diving. I could be taking movies. I could be doing a lot of things. And this guy says to me, "Well, we're going to detain you until we get a warrant." I says, "Am I under arrest?" He says, "No." I says, "Well, then how are you going to detain me?" I says, "The moment you detain me, then I'm under arrest." I says, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my container, whatever's in it, and I'm going to put it in my car, and I'm going to go home." And that's exactly what I did. When I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there were two fishing game guys, scratching their what. You don't have to put up with this crap. And if you do, then whatever happens to you is your fault. It's time for people to learn the law. I've been telling you this. If you listen to what's going on in independent media, you'll see that more and more people are starting to talk like I'm talking. Even Alex Jones, he has a lawyer on there, says the exact same things that I'm saying. Now, I may not be a lawyer, but you see, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So if you're not out here, if you're going to be the sovereign and these people, your police work for you, all these various different government agencies work for you, then you need to know how to exercise your rights. We've got problems here. We've got the BATF, we've got the EPA, we've got all of these unconstitutional government organizations, and none of them say they need a warrant. The EPA can come along and just say, "Hey, we saw something on your property that we think violates something, and we're not even going to take you to court. We're going to start fining you now without due process of law." This is where we've gotten. And if you know how to go after the individual that's doing this, then ignorance of the law is no excuse for that person too. So I'm just going to wrap this up. This is more of a rant than anything else, but hopefully it has sparked something in you that I understand that maybe I should start becoming a responsible sovereign citizen and acting like the boss and keep getting control of my government servants, and they're all servants. No such thing as an official or authority. The only authority is that which comes from the Constitution. And the 10th Amendment makes it very clear, if the United States Constitution does not authorize it, then they don't have that. The government does not have that power. And if they take that power, then they've usurped it. And it's a violation of my rights, your rights, and anybody else's rights out here that gives a damn. I am the Ghetto Man. Thank you for watching. If you're politically correct, then you're legally wrong. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. Please subscribe to my BitChute channel and please share.